Of course, it's Mother's Day, so we have a Mother's Day message, and that is out of First Samuel, chapter 1. Now, the story I'm referring to here is the story of Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel. She was married to a man by the name of Elkanah, and she was the second wife. There was a first wife who had a number of children. She had no children. And we start at verse 5, and it says here, "For he, Elkanah, loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. And her adversary, which is the other wife, also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb." So here we have a woman who wants to be a mom. She's being attacked for not having any children. I have to understand at this time, that was a woman's career. Get married and have kids. That was it. There was no other career you could have. You couldn't get a job. The only other job there was the oldest profession on earth. So you either had family to take care of you, or you were married, or you were a professional. So she's married and she doesn't have kids, and this is like, she's feeling terrible about it. And yes, this is a Mother's Day message. And you say, well, but how's that fit in? Well, actually we get down to verse 10. Now she had a problem. It's like, so what do you do about it? And verse 10 really starts to highlight the whole issue. And Hannah, was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord and wept sore. She brought her problem to God. She recognized that there was something spiritual behind it. Why? Well, because she was normal. There was no reason why she couldn't bear children, except that God didn't allow it. And she vowed a vow and said, when she was praying, "O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." So she was dedicating the child to God, not just dedicating the child to God, but she was dedicating him as a Nazarite. And a Nazarite is a particularly, well, it talks about that in the Old Testament, but the Nazarite didn't drink any wine, no alcohol of any type, wasn't even allowed to eat grapes. And the other thing about them, they never cut their hair. And it sounds, why is that? Well, to some extent it's really a reproach, because men had short hair, women had long hair. But it was a sign that he was a Nazarite, he had long hair. So she made this commitment, which is an interesting commitment, because if you don't have any children, why would you commit to give this one back to God if you don't have any at all? It's an interesting thing. So where did that come from? Clearly that was something that God put in her spirit to do. And because it's not a natural thing. In point of fact, she's praying and she knows that God has shut her womb. She doesn't have an attitude about it. She's not angry with God because she's not getting what she wants. And the reason for that is very simple. She doesn't have a sense of entitlement. When we get angry with God, it's because we feel we're entitled to something He's not giving us. So always ask yourself if you're angry with God, as an aside. Why am I angry? And it's because I'm entitled. And He's not giving me what I want. But we're not entitled to anything. We're not even entitled to salvation. The only thing that we're really entitled to, as sinners, is eternal damnation. So she vows and she gives this thing to God. It's like, now what is interesting about all of this, the word says God had stopped her womb. She's not angry with God, but she's petitioning God for this. There's no doctors involved. They didn't have much by way of medicine back then. But the whole issue is a spiritual issue. She understands it's a spiritual issue. Having children is a spiritual issue, and it still is today. Now, most people don't think much about it. Well, we're going to get married, and then, well, we'll have kids or not have kids, whatever. But the issue of children or not having children is strictly a spiritual issue. We have to give that all to God, because God determines whether we should have children or not have children. Bringing it to another thing, IVF and all that, even IVF and all of those things, they don't work that much, but it's the grace of God that they work at all. It's a completely unnatural procedure. So it's like, by the grace of God says, oh, okay, well, you'll let some of those things slide. But the whole thing here, like I said, is she's a mother in the sense she starts not from, I know how to do this. I know how to get pregnant. She brings it all back to God. It's a spiritual issue. She wants children, and God creates those children before they ever land up in your womb. He knew who we were before we were created. He created us to be exactly what we are. So she makes this commitment. The next scripture I want to go down to is verse 16. Now she's praying this in the temple. They go up every year at the time of Passover to make their offerings, and she's praying this in the temple. Now verse 16, the chief priest, Eli, comes along and he says, he thinks that she's drinking because she's praying, her lips are moving, but she's not saying anything. And so he says, well, you shouldn't be drunk in the temple. Verse 16, count not thine handmaid. This is Hannah speaking back to Eli. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. He said, my complaint, my grief, I've poured it out unto God. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. Well, that's great. The prophet says, okay, God give you what you ask for. And she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. Now, she didn't say, well, I asked for a man-child and this, that, and the other, and she didn't explain anything, and he didn't explain anything. Just whatever you're asking for, God give it to you. And she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. Faith in action. She didn't have a child. She asked for a child, and the prophet said, yes, you got your child. Actually, didn't even say that. You got what you asked for. But now, the enemy can start working your mind. But you didn't hear him say that you could have a child. The enemy's probably going to be whispering that in your ear. He didn't say that you were going to have a boy. He didn't say when you're going to have it. He didn't say that he said, what did you ever ask for? But did you ask for something else? Maybe it's something else he's going to give you, not the child. The enemy can get, you ladies, you get into your head sometimes, you go all over the place, right? She didn't go there. She took the word at face value. She took it by faith. She had a physical problem, she brought it to God. And she said, I need a baby, I want a baby. And the prophet said, you can have what you pray for. She went home and she was happy. She asked for it by faith and she received it by faith. She didn't have the baby yet. She didn't have to have the baby yet. She had that baby by faith. Faith is the substance of the things that are hoped for and the evidence of what you don't see. So she just knew in her heart. She had that faith. The prophet said so. Then we go down to verse 20. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, because I asked him of the Lord. Samuel means asked of God. Now there's a bunch of interesting things going on here. She believed. She became pregnant. She had the son that she asked God for. Now that's usually the point where people take off. Woohoo! I got what I asked for. And then forget about God. She didn't. What did she do? She called him asked of God. So every time she calls that boy, for whatever purpose, it's, hey, asked of God. Hey, ask of God. Can you forget where that baby came from? Absolutely no way. She called him a name that she could never forget how she got that child. This is very important. This is part of faith. She got pregnant by faith. She had the baby by faith. She called the name of the baby by faith. It was asked of God. She never forgot how that baby got there. That baby got there by faith. Why is this all important? You know what? It's so easy to get caught up with your children. Well, both ways. I mean, you can be, they're kids. Yeah, there's billions of kids around the world, and everybody has kids, and they've been having it for thousands of years, and we'll be having kids for thousands of years. And so, no big deal. Yes, it's a big deal. Every child is created in the image and likeness of God, and every child is a big deal. Everyone's unique. But on the other side, a lot of women get so tied up with their children. It's like, they're my children. They're mine. And and like for the boys, no girl's good enough. She got to walk at least 3 feet off the floor before she's good enough. She better be rich. She better be talented. She better be good looking. She better be rich. Then she'll be good enough. And better good looking. Not as much as me, but she better be good looking. So that's how women can be. And so it's like, and for the girls, it's like the same way. It's like, yeah, but he's got to be good enough. He's got to. And it's not like that. It's not like, why? Because children do not belong to you. And we don't have any right to set up standards for our children. Why? Each one's different. Each one has a different call. Each one has a different perspective. Each one is unique. And they never belong to you. They're just entrusted into your hands to raise them, to send them out there to do a better job than what you did. They don't belong to you. But it's easy to get caught up into that. But she's walking a line here, and she recognizes that this whole process is immense spiritual. Now, we get to another very interesting part. Verse 26. She goes back. She says, look, I'm going to raise this child. Every year they went up to the temple at the time of Passover and made the offering, etc. She says, no, I got this baby. Until the baby's weaned, and I can bring him to the Lord and leave him there, I'll stay back. So she did. But she finally gets to the place where he's weaned. And he can eat on his own now. So, what happens? They go to the temple, and Hannah says to Eli, verse 26, O my Lord, as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore also have I lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there, or he being Eli. She kept her word. Lots of people will try to, kind of deal with God. Well, I'll do this if you do that, and then God does that, and it's like, I can't remember what I said. Maybe I don't remember it right. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. So this is, 2-3 years later, she brings him. She said, I dedicated him to God, and here he is. The child that I asked for, God, I'm giving back to you. I'm giving him back to you. That's what I asked for. That's what you gave me. That's what I called him. And he's yours. She kept her word. She remembered the whole process. For her, it wasn't about having a child. For her, it was about raising a child. Doing her part to get him to the place where she could give him back to God. A gift. And as mothers, your children are your gift back to God. That's what your children are supposed to be. your gift back to God, just like her. And now you can't all dump them off at the church. After they've weaned, of course. But that's not the point. When you raise your children and you give them to the Lord, and they're walking in righteousness, they are a gift to God. And they're also a gift to the world from God. Our purpose is to have children, to get rid of children. You don't want them 60 years old sitting in your house when you're 80 or 90. You don't want them there. You want them to be able to get out there, get married, have kids, live a life. You want the best for them. But Hannah saw past that. It's like, yes, I want the best for my son. But more importantly, I want to keep my word and I want to bless God with my attitude. And that leads to the last scripture we touch on, chapter 2, verse 20. After she prayed that, and as she gave the child, presented the child, Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, Hannah, and said, "The Lord give thee seed of this woman for the loan which she has lent to the Lord." And they went unto their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah, not the next day, so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. Now, like I said, that didn't happen the next day. She didn't have quintuplets. Didn't happen. No, she had 3 sons and 2 daughters over the course of years. Because God keeps his promises. Now, she had no expectation of having more children. She was happy for this one child, for the experience of having the one child and giving him to God. She was happy for that, bless you. She was happy to have had that experience. And God said, because of your faithfulness as a believer, because you're giving your child back to me, I'll give you 5 more. It's a great return. What is interesting, when you read in Proverbs, it talks about, blessed is the man who has children, and blessed the man who has a quiver full of children. And it just so happens that the number of arrows in a quiver is 5. So God blessed her with a full quiver full of children. 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls after the first one. So technically speaking, really she had 6. But the first one she gave back to God. She saw him every year. It said she went up every year and she would bring him a new coat. And so of course she loved him. She didn't give him away because she didn't love him. He didn't have any issues about not being loved. He was dedicated to God. What can you do as a mother? First thing, from the beginning to the end, it's a spiritual walk. It's a spiritual journey. And you know what? Some people adopt, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because that child, when you hold it in your hand, it doesn't matter who birthed it. That child, when I hand it to you and it becomes your charge, is your baby. That baby doesn't know any other mother. It just knows that it needs a mother and a father. And when you take care of that baby loves you the same way as if it came from your very body. There are many mothers in the earth, and they're not all, they didn't bear all their children. But the best mothers are the ones that make it a spiritual issue. And more often than not, those are ones that actually didn't bear the children, because they recognize the responsibility of motherhood. Motherhood is about bringing those children back into the presence of God, gifting them back to God spiritually, and walking in that relationship with God. That's what makes it special. And that's my message today.